Tell me, Watson, what do you make of our visitor's stick? Since we have been so unfortunate as to miss him, this accidental souvenir becomes of importance. Let me hear you reconstruct the man by an examination of it. To James Mortimer, from his friends of the CCH, I should guess that to be the something Hunt. Interesting, though elementary. Has anything escaped me? I would suggest that a presentation to a doctor is more likely to come from a hospital than from a Hunt, and that when initials CC are placed before that hospital, the words Charing Cross very naturally suggest themselves. You may be right. Come in. I'm so very glad. I would not lose that stick for the world. A presentation, I see. Yes, sir. From Charing Cross Hospital? From one or two friends there on the occasion of my marriage. What does Dr. James Mortimer, the man of science, ask of Sherlock Holmes, the specialist in crime? I came to you, Mr. Holmes, because I recognise that I am myself an unpractical man. Indeed, sir. I have in my pocket a manuscript. I observed it as you entered the room. It is an old manuscript, early 18th century, unless it is a forgery. The exact date is 1742. This family paper was committed to my care by Sir Charles Baskervilles, whose sudden and tragic death some 3 months ago created so much excitement in Devonshire. I may say that I was his personal friend, as well as his medical attendant. He was a strong-minded man, sir, shrewd, practical, and as unimaginative as I am myself. Yet he took this document very seriously, and his mind was prepared for just such an end as did eventually overtake him. It appears to be a statement of some sort. Yes, it is a statement of a certain legend which runs in the Baskerville family. But I understand that it is something more modern and practical upon which you wish to consult me. Most modern. A most practical, pressing matter, which must be decided within 24 hours. But the manuscript is short, and is intimately connected with the affair. With your permission, I will read it to you. Of the origin of the Hound of the Baskervilles, there have been many statements. Yet as I come in a direct line from Hugo Baskerville, and as I had the story from my father, who also had it from his, I have set it down with all belief that it occurred even as is here set forth. This manor of Baskerville was held by Hugo of that name, nor can it be gainsaid that he was a most wild, profane, and godless man. This, in truth, his neighbours might have pardoned, seeing that saints have never flourished in those parts, but there was in him a certain wanton and cruel humour, which made his name a byword through the West. It chanced that this Hugo came to love, if indeed so dark a passion may be known under so bright a name, the daughter of a yeoman who held lands near the Baskerville estate. But the young maiden, being discreet and of good repute, would ever avoid him, for she feared his evil name. So it came to pass that one Michaelmas this Hugo, with 5 or 6 of his idle and wicked companions, stole down upon the farm and carried off the maiden, her father and brothers being from home, as he well knew. When they had brought her to the hall, the maiden was placed in an upper chamber, while Hugo and his friends sat down to a long carouse, as was their nightly custom. Now the poor lass, upstairs, was like to have her wits turned at the singing and shouting and terrible oaths which came up to her from below, for they say that the words used by Hugo Baskerville when he was in wine were such as might blast the man who said them. At last, in the stress of her fear, she did that which might have daunted the bravest or most active man, for by the aid of the growth of ivy which covered, and still covers, the south wall, she came down from under the eaves, and so homeward across the moor, there being 3 leagues betwixt the hall and her father's farm. It chanced that some little time later, Hugo left his guests to carry food and drink, with other worse things perchance, to his captive, and so found the cage empty and the bird escape, whereat Hugo ran from the house, crying to his grooms that they should saddle his mare. The moon shone clear above them, and they rode swiftly abreast, taking that course which the maid must needs have taken if she were to reach her own home. The company had come to a halt, more sober men, as you may guess, than when they started. The most of them would by no means advance, but 3 of them, the boldest, or it may be the most drunken, rode forward down the Goyle. Now it opened into a broad space in which stood 2 of those great stones, still to be seen there, which were set by certain forgotten peoples in the days of old. The moon was shining bright upon the clearing, and there in the centre lay the unhappy maid where she had fallen, dead of fear and of fatigue. But it was not the sight of her body, nor yet that of the body of Hugo Baskerville lying near her, which raised the hair upon the heads of these 3 daredevil roisterers, but it was that, standing over Hugo and plucking at his throat, there stood a foul thing, a great black beast, shaped like a hound, yet larger than any hound that ever mortal eye has rested upon. And even as they looked, the thing tore the throat out of Hugo Baskerville, on which, as it turned its blazing eyes and dripping jaws upon them, the 3 shrieked with fear and rode for dear life, still screaming across the moor. Well, do you not find it interesting? To a collector of fairy tales. Now, Mr. Holmes, we will give you something a little more recent. It is a short account of the facts elicited at the death of Sir Charles Baskerville. The circumstances connected with the death of Sir Charles cannot be said to have been entirely cleared up by the inquest, but at least enough has been done to dispose of those rumours to which local superstition has given rise. There is no reason whatever to suspect foul play, or to imagine that death could be from any but natural causes. The facts of the case are simple. Sir Charles Baskerville was in the habit every night before going to bed of walking down the famous yew alley of Baskerville Hall, in the course of which he was in the habit of smoking a cigar. He never returned. At 12 o'clock, Barrymore, finding the hall door still open, became alarmed, and lighting a lantern, went in search of his master. The day had been wet, and Sir Charles's footmarks were easily traced down the alley, and it was at the far end of it that his body was discovered. No signs of violence were to be discovered upon Sir Charles's person. It is understood that the next of kin is Mr. Henry Baskerville, if he is still alive, the son of Sir Charles Baskerville's younger brother. The young man, when last heard of, was in America, and inquiries are being instituted with a view to informing him of his good fortune. Those are the public facts, Mr. Holmes.
Then let me have the private ones.
I am telling that which I have not confided to anyone. My motive for withholding it from the coroner's inquiry is that a man of science shrinks from placing himself in the public position of seeming to endorse a popular superstition. Within the last few months it became increasingly plain to me that Sir Charles's nervous system was strained to the breaking point. He had taken this legend which I have read you exceedingly to heart, so much so that although he would walk in his own grounds, nothing would induce him to go out upon the moor at night. On the night of Sir Charles's death, Barrymore the butler, who made the discovery, sent Perkins the groom on horseback to me, and as I was sitting up late, I was able to reach Baskerville Hall within an hour of the event. I checked and corroborated all the facts which were mentioned at the inquest. A little distance off, but fresh and clear.
Footprints?
Footprints.
A man's or a woman's?
Mr. Holmes, they were the footprints of a gigantic hound.
You saw this?
As clearly as I see you.
And you said nothing?
What was the use?
There are many sheepdogs on the moor.
No doubt, but this was no sheepdog.
You say it was large.
Enormous.
But it had not approached the body.
No.
What is the alley like?
There are 2 lines of old yew hedge, 12 feet high and impenetrable. The walk in the centre is about 8 feet across.
I understand that the yew hedge is penetrated at one point by a gate.
Yes.
How high was it?
About 4 feet high.
Then anyone could have got over it.
Yes.
Is there any other opening?
None.
Now tell me, Dr. Mortimer, and this is important, the marks which you saw were on the path and not on the grass.
No marks could show on the grass.
Were they on the same side of the path as the moor-gate?
Yes.
You interest me exceedingly. What marks did you see by the wicket gate?
It was all very confused. Sir Charles had evidently stood there for 5 or 10 minutes.
How do you know that?
Because the ash had twice dropped from his cigar.
Excellent. This is a colleague, Watson, after our own heart. But the marks?
He had left his own marks all over that small patch of gravel. I could discern no others.
If I had only been there. That gravel page upon which I might have read so much has been long ere this smudged by the rain and defaced by the clogs of curious peasants. Oh, Dr. Mortimer, Dr. Mortimer, to think that you should not have called me in. You have indeed much to answer for.
I could not call you in, Mr. Holmes, without disclosing these facts to the world, and I have already given my reasons for not wishing to do so. Besides...
Why do you hesitate?
There is a realm in which the most acute and most experienced of detectives is helpless.
You mean that the thing is supernatural?
I did not positively say so.
No, but you evidently think it.
Since the tragedy, Mr. Holmes, there have come to my ears several incidents which are hard to reconcile with the settled order of nature.
For example?
I find that before the terrible event occurred, several people had seen a creature upon the moor which corresponds with this Baskerville demon, and which could not possibly be any animal known to science.
If you hold these views, why have you come to consult me at all? You tell me in the same breath that it is useless to investigate Sir Charles's death, and that you desire me to do it.
I did not say that I desired you to do it.
Then how can I assist you?
By advising me as to what I should do with Sir Henry Baskerville, who arrives at Waterloo Station. Exactly 1 hour and a quarter. You advise me to do with him?
He being the heir?
Yes, on the death.
Why should he not go to the home of his fathers?
It seems natural, does it not? And yet consider that every Baskerville who goes there meets with an evil fate. I feel sure that if Sir Charles could have spoken with me before his death, he would have warned me against bringing this, the last of the old race, and the heir to great wealth, to that deadly place.
Plain words, the matter is this, said he. There is a diabolical agency which makes Dartmoor an unsafe abode for a Baskerville. That is your opinion?
At least I might go the length of saying that there is some evidence that this may be so.
Exactly. But surely if your supernatural theory be correct, it could work the young man evil in London as easily as in Devonshire. A devil with merely local powers, like a parish vestry, would be too inconceivable a thing.
Recommend?
I recommend, sir, that you take a cab, call off your spaniel who is scratching at my front door, and proceed to Waterloo to meet Sir Henry Baskerville.
And then?
And then you will say nothing to him at all until I have made up my mind about the matter.
How long will it take you to make up your mind?
24 hours. At 10 o'clock tomorrow, Dr. Mortimer, I'll be much obliged to you if you will call upon me here, and it will be of help to me in my plans for the future if you will bring Sir Henry Baskerville with you.
I will do so, Mr. Holmes.